I think, if you look at the inconsistencies, that's the first time I've seen that in a long time in terms of fan reaction and even some media reaction. And I think what gets lost in all this is this isn't the Coke 600. This is a 17-turn racetrack where there's a lot of different things going on, a lot of different sight angles. So when you look up and you see smoke and you see some things from the tower, we'll throw a caution. When you don't, or there's a delay and you see a car rolling off, at times, you wait and don't throw the caution, and then it depends on circumstances. So I think, one of the ones I saw, even the last one with the 41, we've been consistent for I don't know how many years in terms of if a car's able to roll off and we don't have to finish under yellow, we'll do that. So that's why we made that call. So, fans certainly have the right to question that, but I think we'd make all of those calls again. It's a challenging racetrack with all those turns and everything going on, and there are always judgment calls.
Jeff Burton, Dale Jarrett, Steve Letarte here. All right, guys, we heard what Steve O'Donnell had to say about the yellows at the Roval. Let's start with the finish, because I think we can all agree on the finish. The 41, the non-call on the 41, I agree with Steve's comments that they have tried as everything possible to finish these races under green. I know they've got a lot of skeptics over the years, but I think that's actually an improvement. I want to see green flag races to the checker flag, and I like what they did with the 41.
I'll agree with you 100% there. I thought that was the right call. He actually spun out twice trying to make all of that, and they gave him time because the front of the field and nobody was behind him was a long way away. So I thought that NASCAR did a good job there. Didn't look like there was any fluid on the track. So I agreed totally with that call.
Yeah, I mean, this is a call they've been consistent on. And try to get it to the checkered. If you don't have to run through the wreck, if the wreck clears itself off, let it roll. Remember when they started doing that, it was controversial.
Yes,
it was.
Right.
It was.
So now it's gotten to the point when now it's become normal, which is a good normal.
Yes. And
I think the rest of this conversation is really going to be because they've quit throwing those cautions. Right? They quit throwing the caution for an innocent spin. We don't see that anymore.
Yeah.
And then on Sunday, it changed a little bit.
Well, so 10 yellows for 23 laps. That's what the box score is going to say for the Roval. I go with the simple eye test, right? I don't know the criteria for a yellow. I've never been explained it, even my 25 years in NASCAR. I know that, if there's an impact, they're going to have to throw a yellow. If the track's not in a raceable condition. Other than that, I don't know the definition. But, guys, I had a little bit of trouble understanding the yellows for two specific incidents. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. spinning in the chicane and the 47 spinning in the chicane. I thought they were harmless spins, and I thought those are two yellows that could have been avoided.
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be difficult, but if a car spins and you've thrown a caution before for a car spinning, then I think you should be consistent with that. And sometimes it's going to probably, you would have said, well, we might not should have thrown that. But if you're going to throw it for these, then there were other cases to where cars spun and there wasn't a caution thrown. And I don't like to get too many laps out. I mean, that's almost 20% of the race that we had with that, with caution laps. And with a shorter race like this, even though it's a long afternoon, that just seems a bit excessive.
Yeah, listen, I will say this, and I like you. Some of these I didn't like the cautions. I don't know the circumstance in the tower. Was there an opportunity where somebody looked up and saw something and said, "Oh God, we better throw the call"? I don't know the circumstance. I will say this: I'd rather us sitting here today say, why did they throw that caution versus the other way around?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's fair. But I will say,
if they didn't throw the caution and somebody drives in there and sideswipes somebody, they would be getting criticism for that. Yeah. You know what I mean? So yes, it didn't. The eye test didn't look very good, right? It didn't look very good. But I don't know all the circumstance in the tower, and they've been so consistent about not throwing those cautions. Like something was different.
Well, that's why it stood out.
Yes.
That's why it stood out. But so here's my problem, though. I have less of an issue with the yellows that were or weren't thrown than I went with the reason. That the Roval's a tough racetrack with 17 corners. I don't disagree, but it's a second trip there. Yeah. It's a cut race in the playoffs. My struggle is this. With playoffs and with the playoff format, and these cut races, the expectation of performance from the race teams is as high as it's ever been. The expectation of performance from the three of us is high, right? We can't miss that Game 7 moment, right? You and I couldn't mislabel a car, mislabel a points battle. Our bosses would not be okay with that. I feel like it's time for NASCAR to evaluate if they have the people and the procedures in place, because much like you, I am fine with we didn't know if it was safe or not. We threw a yellow. I'm always going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I don't want their job. I don't want to have to decide if there's yellows, right? I'm going to get that. If that would have been the reason this morning, I'd have said, you know what? I got no argument, right? Because there was a guy in both of those cars that were spinning that want that yellow. But to just say it's tough in line of sight, I struggle with that a little bit. They have to officiate whether you go through the chicane or not. So I think when you come to these racetracks, they have to be a little more proactive on how they're going to do that. Look, none of us are perfect. You know, we all make adjustments, but I'd like to see NASCAR adjust something before you go back to a track like that.
Right, that's a fair point. And the point being that, you know, Sonoma has a lot of corners too.
Yeah.
And you know, they have to officiate that race as well. And that is a fair point. And NASCAR, you know, in my opinion, NASCAR could have done a better job yesterday with some of those cautions. There's no question about that. And you're right. They need to not. The excuse can't be, well, it's hard, right? Because it's hard on everybody. That is a fair point.
They've done a great job of not throwing every caution I've seen, whether I agreed with it or not. There was at least a moment, a car backwards, something on the racetrack. That's something that 5 years ago, Steve O'Donnell said, we're done. If there's a yellow, there's going to be a reason, whether we agree with them or not. DJ, they have been very consistent. Yeah. Whether we like the reason or not, there has always been a reason.
There has been a reason, and that's good. And yesterday was a perfect example. When cars spun, they threw it. Not every time a car spun, and that's where I struggle with that. What warranted these others being thrown was at the timing of the race, the people around. Just give us, some kind of explanation to go on. But in the world of sports, it's an argument, it's a debate with every single one. When you get to the Super Bowl or the World Series, it's the best of the groups that have been put there. This is the same group every single weekend. Now, they might have to add some extra people at certain places like Sonoma, and it sounds like maybe some people might need to be added at the Roval to help officiate that a little bit more, or take some of the people that are in the tower and put them out in key positions around the racetrack.
I think it's interesting, too, that officiating is, and we talked about this earlier today, officiating has been a conversation in all of sports. And I don't know if that's because of the advancement in technology, where now you can see things more clearly, you can slow things down. I don't know. But, it seems like in all sports, there's this conversation about the officiating that's at a higher rate than I remember it being.
I think it's the expectation of the fans now that you get it right, because you have so many things going on. And I'll throw in gambling to a side of it, that people have money on a lot more things than what they used to be able to. And so when you have a vested interest in something, you want things to be better than what they were.
So, it's easy to pick on NASCAR with the question of the yellows or not yellows, but in the pressure-packed 109 laps that were run on Sunday afternoon, that's really the only weakness I could have found.
Yeah.
I mean, the format of the playoffs was great, the double file restarts, the enforcing the chicane, which had all the potential in the world to be a hot spot. They stuck to their guns from Bubba Wallace on lap 1 to the 6th car on lap 106. Very consistent. I was a fan.
And I'm gonna put that one on the teams. Like how the team said, oh, well, you don't have to stop here. You stop there. What?
Yeah.
I read the rules. It wasn't that complicated.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like I read the transcript from the driver's meeting. It wasn't that complicated. You know what I mean? And if they have a driver's meeting for a reason, they send that email out on Sunday morning for a reason. Like for a crew chief and a driver not to know the rule about where do you stop and when you need to stop, I find that just crazy. That's just unimaginable to me.
Yeah, that was put out there for everybody to know, and we know as a driver, if there is a rule, it's no different than a place like Bristol where you have pits on the front and the back, and knowing where you need to enter. That's your job to understand the situation going in the pits under green flag or under caution, and understanding that. Know the rules before you get into the car, because it's part of your job.
Well, I can say Cautions will still be debated. They always will. It's part of sport. No different than the strike zone, no different than pass interference.
Yep.
But when I watch the race back, I don't think these cautions affected the outcome of the race at all. I think the best car still won the race, even after his own caution. And 16 playoff drivers came in with a chance and 12 left with a chance at the championship. That's our take on it. As always, if you want our ideas every week, tune in. NASCAR America, 5 o'clock weekdays.